blessing, and of course, the other guys, a number of points that that they have raised. But I just, before we bring in Professor Bassi, I just wanted Mr. Ona to clarify this. Is there any dichotomy between schools in urban and rural areas? Are schools in public schools in rural areas also benefiting from the school feeding program? And of course, do you have pupils who are scaling the fences where feeding is going on in order to go and, partake in the party that is a daily affair now, presumably?
It's very interesting, especially to us and to the viewers that are watching this program. There is no dichotomy. In Enugu State, we have 1,229 public primary schools at present, and the program is meant for all of them. The level of dichotomy you can think about is this issue I have raised. Otherwise, in implementing the program, there is no dichotomy at present, and we don't plan to have any, even in the future, because the program was designed for all the public primary schools in the state. Then on the issue of children running from one school to the other, as a matter of fact, 90% of my activities should have been in the field. But you find out that head teachers are crowding our office, complaining that they are losing their children, especially the schools that are not feeding. In the morning, you see some head teachers engage the classroom teachers to stand at the gate to monitor and then make sure the children do not move from one school to the next, because children want to enjoy the party. So it is real. It is practical. We are seeing it in schools, and we've complained that many schools that are not feeding are fast losing their pupils. And when they lose their pupils, the job of the head teacher is threatened. The job of the classroom teacher is threatened as well. So something should be done fast in looking at the method of payment, and then the scrutiny applied in determining who receives payment and who doesn't. We were given operational guidelines, which we followed religiously to recruit these vendors at the state level. And I believe that since we followed these guidelines religiously, subjecting the vendors to another level of scrutiny that resulted in many of them not being paid to participate in the program, they don't feel fulfilled. It's a serious threat to the program. They do not feel fulfilled. The children do not feel fulfilled. The children are, jealous. Where children are eating in this classroom and in the next classroom, eating is not taking place. You can imagine what happens, especially we all have our families and the kids at home. You know how they behave. So I think at present, so many head teachers are facing threats of losing their pupils from their schools where feeding is not going on to the schools where feeding is going on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bassi. I wonder the kind of delicacy Enugu State is offering that is making this.
No, but blessing, you remember when we were in elementary school, and then you had the food vendor. Pupils who were from deprived homes who couldn't, afford something. They would stand by a corner, and then sometimes would be saying,
Professor Bassi, yes, let's take a look at the impact the school feeding program really has brought on the state and on the national level, really. There are plenty of problems, even as we have so much interesting views coming in as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start by saying I am surprised at the lack of, jumping into the program by states. I don't know the statistics of how many APC states are in this program. So I can excuse those states that didn't plan, PDP states, so to say, or some other states, that didn't plan for, didn't promise this feeding program. But if APC states, why wouldn't they have started early to make preparation and to jump into this? The Vice President said clearly the other day that the right to life guaranteed in the Constitution is being threatened if there is no adequate nutrition. If there is no food, that right to life is threatened. I add that, in fact, what you are guaranteeing is a right to die. And a lot of people who don't have food, you have given them the right to die when situations are like this. So if a program is like this, and I have read recently that the counterpart funding part we thought was a major, discouraging factor on their own part, so to say, has been removed. You need them to be, embrace it and support it, encourage it. So what does it take to do that? Why other states are not joining? Why is the slow rate in number of states that are joining this? That keeps on, bothering me, because the benefits of this program cannot be overemphasized. The adequate feeding program, the nutrition aspect and health aspect is underscored. The backward integration we are having with the farmers and rest of them is there. So why is it that people are not jumping into this? I have seen people criticize the 5,000 thing that is not going, it's not something that adds to GDP. But why is this one that it can have the capacity to, in fact, add more? The state governments are not jumping into it. We need to address this point, because if we address it, we can now begin to say, okay, you can reevaluate the program to see how the impact can be scaled up. Because I know that it's not so easy for the federal government to bear the burden of this. Currently, in the 2006 budget, you had over 90-something billion. I think about 93 billion for this already. So I don't know how far that will go. But when you look at the share of the feeding program from the 500,000, is it 500,000 billion?
500
yeah.
billion.
How much has gone into it? Because I keep wondering, it's like we are not actually putting in more from that amount allocated to this program. Otherwise, many more states would have gone into it. And listening to Ifeanyi Ona, the point he makes is very clear. These are practical things in implementation. Right. And the essence of what we are doing, and of course you also listening, is to help now make this thing properly done. And that raises the issue of implementation framework, the institutional framework on the ground. I don't know whether the capacity is there to respond to all this. I don't know whether you could have the staff, the required number of staff, to respond to all these issues being raised. Some of them require what you can call monitoring and evaluation. Like Ona said, he says it's supposed to be in the field, monitoring what is happening. But for you to say that, in fact, it has made a so and so impact, M1 is important, monitoring and evaluation. I don't know how far that has been integrated at the local level or through the NGOs that you have.
Okay, Mrs. Adi, maybe we find a point to come in at this point. Okay. There were other areas that were not envisaged. Pressure on infrastructure, even some of the schools present. Where is the program running in terms of this?
Well, I think it wasn't that they were not envisaged. It was the enormosity of what will happen that may not have been envisaged. We had a mantra that the children are not politicians. Whether APC, PDP, or APGA, these children are Nigerians and they deserve to be fed. Surprisingly, we have equal number. We have 11 now, we're going to 15. We have more out of APC states on the program. All the southeastern states, 2 in the south-south are part of it, and then some of them in the north are actually feeding. So we don't really have a party issue about the program, because most of the states that have embraced it have seen the need for their children. Now, in terms of states not embracing, it is not that they haven't. The commitment is the first thing, and the buy-in of the government. And by the government, we mean the Executive Council. They need to understand what they are going into. And for us to have 30 states on board, they all understand. But then they have to organize the cooks. For a state like Kaduna, they will be recruiting close to 15,000 cooks. We have 9,000 presently. Now, for you to shop for, and I will use that word shop, for 15,000 women from the rural areas, you can imagine the amount of work, the visits, and they have to be endorsed by their religious leaders, endorsed by the school community, the SBMC, the NGO, that they are known and they live within a 100-meter distance or kilometer distance from the school, because we don't want to use the funds to pay for transport. Now, when we come to the angle of the finances, how, as Mr. Ona described, states have been innovative. And that is where we go back to say you need to be part of this. Some states will join the program because we know that 4 billion will enter my state in a year, in a school year, and I can trap it and use it to oil my economy. But some states will say, let us see what government will do, which is Nigeria. We will want to see.
But so how does that help? Because we always adopt this This
Yes.
don't look.
So what we have done is to now start learnings. This state is succeeding. Let's go there. Let's see what they have done. Let's now improve on what they have done and look at it for other regions.
Which are the star states?
No, we can't really define star states. We will define star regions.
Okay.
So we won't say star states because we don't have half the number of states in the country. We started with Osun program. Yes, we wanted to build on that model. But from that Osun model, states have redesigned their own model. So we can't define them as star because it is specific to their states.
Yeah, but the program was designed to be specific in the first instance.
That's what
Actually,
we're saying.
we had the deputy governor of Osun State on this program some months ago, and we discussed the school feeding program. I mean, the other guests, of course, were quite excited about what was going on in Osun State. Other than Osun State, where else have we seen some remarkable improvement in the organization?
Anambra is one.
What is Anambra doing right?
Anambra has organized their state monitoring, the whole coordination sector, to be able to take charge to respond per time to the issues of the school feeding. In Ogun State, we also have a situation where the cooperative groups distribute foods per local government. There are farmers who supply the women. They don't have to travel. They just come to the local government secretariat to pick up. And they are paid. They have their organization. They have monitors on the field. When we talk about the monitors, in the framework, the monitoring and evaluation has been factored in. There are third-party monitors. There are NGOs, CSOs. There are school-based management committees who are also trained to be part of this program.
How effective are these mechanisms you've put in place, and how often are the reports coming in?
They have all existed in the education structure. What we do is to leverage on what we have existing. We don't create new structures. So we go to the schools. How do you report anything in this school back to the state? Okay, this is the system. Okay, we want to train them to be able to give us that same report through your system on school feeding.
Well, sir, I've been bothered this one. Just to interrupt you here, let's go back to Professor Obasi. Professor Obasi, in terms of numbers, we've seen there's a lot of activity going on, at least in the 11 states where the program is running, and by the time they add up 4, that makes it 15. In terms of numbers, how can we effectively reduce all of this into calculation of our GDP? Of course, in calculating GDP, we're also looking at number of persons who've been employed. And how is it? What are the critical success factors in the urban areas, in rural areas? In rural areas, certainly there will also be farmers. So, what is working? What isn't working? What would you like to see us do in terms of actually tracking these things, reducing them to numbers that would then be used for further policy formulation?
Very good question. Let me start by acknowledging that actually they are preferring least cost approach in implementing this program. And for everything the Office of the Vice President is doing in this program, it appears they don't want to spend much. They want to cut costs. But I can see that becoming a little problem, because that's why the counterpart funding policy is always important in having federal, state programs jointly implemented. You need to get them, the states committed. But I'm still worried why the state cannot be committed. Why wouldn't they, they devote some money to fund this? You are using structures that are already on the ground. They are perfectly, that's what the school system promises. But at the end of the day, why is it that the state government cannot provide some funds to cover the areas where you have such shortages, for instance, like Enugu, where they have some schools not being... Why wouldn't the state come in, hoping that the federal government can do something? Why is it that the enormous benefit that occurs in this is not being harnessed? Going back to Kingsley's question, I think what we can do actually is to make sure that the MYE they have on the ground is effective. Because if it's effective, the claim about the number of coups will be known. That was done during CGS, Conditional Conditional Grant Scheme, under MDG. That was, and the independent third-party monitors, they are not part of the government. The program, as non-state actors who are also remunerated for the work they do, and they are themselves monitored by the office, they are able to know what is happening on the ground. My problem here is, does your office have the capacity to even monitor they themselves, the third-party monitors? Are you having the capacity to monitor them? Because that's a problem. If we cannot get that, that would be a problem. In MDG, they were able to be monitored because the system allowed, yes, the structure allowed that checkmating. At the end of the day, you found out that the program, the projects implemented through the CGS fared much better, some 70%, while the ones done by conventional bureaucracies like ministry and the rest of them, 30%, 20%. So you could see the difference. So if we strengthen the monitoring and evaluation aspect, we'll be able to now count these numbers. And it's possible in every aspect. And the way it is, self-accounting process is guaranteed. But what I know, I don't know whether technology is not failing. Because at times you see technology failing when you have over-reliance. Because if you look at the entire social protection program, I see that technology is taking upper hand. Nothing bad about it. But when it fails, like in the Enugu case, when it fails, if they followed all the guidelines, did all they're supposed to do, but why wouldn't what's supposed to happen? I can see.
All right, Professor Obasi, yes, this is a model that could have been borrowed from other parts of the world because this is a social safety net that most countries are adopting. Are we just overambitious with the type that we're trying to follow?
No, not definitely. Yeah, because in the US, we talked about it a couple of times here, about 2 times. You have state and federal component, and then you have the entire schools covered. So we're not overambitious. The only thing is that how much of the 500,000 billion going into school feeding? Because school feeding is very important. Apart from JIP, for women, this is the one that can give a lot of, economic benefit, integration, and allowing more people to come into the system, get employed, and the multiplier effect will be felt. So I don't know how much is going into it. We're in the 2nd year of it. We should know how much went into from the 500,000, so that we'll be able to know whether all these problems in the field, whether it can be sorted out through adequate funding.
All right, Professor Obasi, thanks. But just before we take our first set of tweets, that's to say by way of reactions from our viewers, I would like to ask Ifeanyi Ona, the Enugu Network Center. We're talking here about gaps and the examples, the real life instances you described in Enugu, of course, probably are things that could manifest in other states as well if there are glitches in the implementation of the program. What is SUBEB doing in all of this? SUBEB standing for State Universal Basic Education Board.
That's interesting. I was about letting us know that if you talk about state support, it is fundamental because in Enugu State, our ownership strategy started with sensitization, awareness creation, and of course, the state government adopting the program. You cannot rule out the support of the state, given the success of the program so far, especially in Enugu State. Because immediately when it came on board, our state governor accepted and approved it should be implemented. And he did not stop there. He provided an office secretariat for the program and set up a steering committee. That is the practical demonstration of ownership in the first stage. Then, given what the National Program Manager, Mrs. Bimbo, said, we are leveraging on existing structure because in Enugu State Universal Basic Education Board, we already have the school-based management committees in different local governments and in communities. As a matter of fact, every school has its own SBMC. And the structure of this SBMC is that it is a mixture of businessmen, civil servants, parents, community leaders, teachers, and other stakeholders in the community. And this was not formed by accident. The school belongs to the community. The children belong to the community. The facilities belong to the community. The community has the responsibility of ensuring adequate security in the school system. And if you come to this level, I tell you honestly that Enugu State Universal Basic Education Board has really been playing a very significant role in ensuring smooth implementation of this program from the state level down the line. Remember, it is a partnership. If it was not a partnership thing at the first instance, the state wouldn't have been urged to look at it and then see if they can own it. We owned it, and from there, it is a partnership between the state and the communities. It is a partnership between the communities and the school. It is a partnership between the school and the parents. All of them are stakeholders, and they are all in the monitoring chain. Ever before we followed the national monitoring guideline, the state has been very innovative to come up with very interesting policies that made it easy for us to implement the program with the support of the state governor. First of all, that no cook should be recruited without proper identification from the community leader. That is the #1 attestation that that cook you want to engage truly lives, resides in that community, and probably could be a native of that community. That is the first ownership stage. From there, you see traditional rulers owning the program because you respected them, you respected their opinion, you respected their role. From there, we move to the local government level. Every local government must attest that this cook is a native or come from this or reside in this local government in one way or the other. It is not only about proximity to the school. It is also about security. It's about safety. It's about ensuring that there is adequate monitoring on the aspect of hygiene, on the aspect of regularity, on the aspect of other factors that may militate against the smooth implementation of the program. So our ownership strategy is superb in Enugu State. And be that as it may, I will say that SUBEB, as it stands now, is an integral part of the state steering committee that was formed. It's a multi-sectoral thing. Ministry of Health is there, Ministry of Agriculture is there, Ministry of Local Government is there, Women Affairs is there, Enugu State Planning Commission is there, Ministry of Education is there, and SUBEB is also there. You find out that all the stakeholders were brought together to chart the way forward on how to make sure that this program succeeds. I must give it to the state that I have really given enough support, and I still urge them to give more. But we are saying that there are things the states can do, there are things the states cannot do. The issue of feeding 4 to 6 is not an automatic decision. It's a budgeting issue. And certain states have started implementing their budget before they started feeding. You really need to give them time to study the program and see the best way and process of bringing it on board into their budget. If you have respect for your budget, you don't bring...
Oh, well, sorry there. That's Ifeanyi, Your Honor. Thank you very much there for your explanation. But blessing, you know, part of what we're talking about, part of the interrogation with regard to the role of SUBEB in all of this is the funding. Now, the attitude, as we very well know in the country, is that, okay, if it's a federal government program, let's wait, you know, the funding to come from the federal government. And already the federal government provides funding through UBEC, and we've seen a number of states default in providing their counterpart funding. Now, if the federal government already provides its own funding for UBEC, and which the SUBEB now access through their various means, what percentage of that can they devote to the school feeding program?
Let's find out what Kaduna is doing in Kaduna. Kaduna. What is most crucial for Kaduna in terms of its own funding or supporting this initiative of the federal government?
Even the federal component, combining the federal component and the state component, wholesale. Of course, committed quite a huge amount of money. About 10 billion naira was invested in this program, hoping also that the federal government would reimburse the state of its counterpart, that the part of its commitment for the primaries 1, 2, 3. Now, Kaduna State doesn't seem to have a problem with this arrangement because it started well before the federal government came in. We are coming back, and the federal government is now coming back. We've been able to recruit substantially. About 50% of our cooks have been verified, authenticated. Payment schedule was sent to us a few days ago. We're studying that, though of course there are also observations there. We'll work on that, I'm sure. The state government does not have a problem with this program, provided the federal government would go ahead and do the needful. And you recall that, of course, having invested quite a much, taking over the federal government component, that reimbursement, we're happy and would like to acknowledge officially again that the federal government has given us 50% of what we have invested. If the remaining 50% is given, we will appreciate the idea of taking up completely both the federal government component and then the state component, and then we can go ahead and do it. So Kano State does not seem to have a problem as far as this counterpart, whatever is concerned.
All right, that's Mr. John Gura from Kaduna Network Studios. Thank you very much. Let's quickly go over now to the reactions from our viewers. Ogbeni Idris Olatunji tweets with regard to the school feeding program. It was successful in Kaduna State because we saw the influx of Nigerian boys eager to attend classes. The federal government should continue with it.
From Sani Michael Makoji, he says school feeding program is a good initiative by federal government, but so far it has been sectional and slow in its expansion. Federal government should speed up. Then he has another one to that. The program is to improve standard of living of pupils, and we understand 70 naira is budgeted per pupil. What protein will such food contain?
And Mobalaji Sula tweets, we are capable of doing things right whenever we are ready. Now, the program is successful, and I hope they maintain the tempo.
Comrade Tomari Abdul says, have they started? We've not seen it. I think what Nigerians need is better teaching material and equipment, good and prompt teacher payment, free education, let the parents feed their children.
Festus Akimboyewa tweets, there's no equity and fairness in the school feeding program that covers only 15 states and excludes 21 states in Nigeria. But that's it's already been explained. There is no exclusion of any state. The program is growing. We have 11 states now, to be 15 at some point, and then of course 30, and probably ultimately 36 plus 1.
Okay, from Sakari is this tweet: if the free school feeding program is real, to appreciate government effort, it should be published where it happens in Nigeria.
Now, Clifford Agogoesi has this tweet. Implementation of the program is critical.
And from Pastor Arishe Monday, he said, considering the economic situation in Nigeria, school feeding program fund should be converted to infrastructural development. Our school need modern teaching technology. The teachers need training and retraining while not convert this fund wasting on feeding to these areas.
And Clifford Agogoesi has another tweet. It says, it is not enough to feed children without providing ubiquitous and clean conveniences and sanitary materials. The Queen's College experience should instruct the managers of the program to be meticulous.
From Prince is this one, they says hundreds of schools in Enugu are not involved.
And Law Alpha C, Madam Abimbola has not really buttressed the criteria for states to be part of this lofty program. Here in Abia State, one hardly notices the free feeding program of our children in primary schools. Or are we yet to embrace it?
From Dele Jack Solomon is this tweet: the quality and quantity of food supplied to many schools is below expectation. This is largely because there is no strict supervision by government. All
right, those are the tweets that we have. Very briefly, is Abia part of the program?
Abia joined in May.
Abia joined in May, that's yes. A couple of months ago.
A couple of months ago, and they are currently feeding. We've gone there to verify that the cooks are real and the children are real.
Yes. Who vets the quality of the food?
With the pupils, the teachers. There's a school health teacher in all the schools that now, when the cooks comes in, the teacher has to vet. And we have instances where they return food and tell them we don't want this food served to our pupils.
Right. We just hope that there's no special plate, you know, no. Designed for the student. All right, that's the much, of course, that we can take in this first segment of our conversation. We have another interesting topic, of course, related to education, which is the revision or alleged revision of the school curriculum with particular reference to national values, CROK and IROK stories we've been hearing reading about it in social media and also in various other media. But we'd like to appreciate our guests who have been discussing the National Homegrown School Feeding Program. The program manager, Abimbola Adesome, thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. Always also appreciation to Professor Isaac Obase, Professor of Public Admin, University of Abuja. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much.
And then to Enugu, I would like to appreciate Mr. Ifeanyi Ona, who is the focal person for the school feeding program in Enugu State. We'd like to thank you for your contributions.
Very much.
Mr. John Gora, focal person for the school feeding program in Kaduna State. Thank you for your contributions. So that does it for the first segment. We'll take a short break now. When we return, CRK, IRK, a new curriculum.
Thank you very much.
The Future Assured project of the wife of the president, Aisha Muhammad Buhari, is carrying out free medical screening and distribution of food items at various IDP camps while ensuring the economic empowerment of women through training and skill acquisition. In recognition of her efforts, wives of governors have lent their voices and support.
In Kogi State, we feel the impact of Future Assured, especially in women and children.
The Future Assured program of Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari, the wife of the president, has been very assuring and still reassuring in Sokoto State. It has impacted positively in the areas of humanity, especially women and children.
Supports the Future Assured initiative. Email programs@futureassured.org.ng. Future Assured, promoting and protecting the lives of Nigerian women and children.
Welcome to the new world of superb taste, now here in Nigeria. Everyone, try it and enjoy the delicious goodness. We are bringing our new noodles to every corner of the country. That's right, it tastes great. It tastes fantastic. It's time for a new noodle. Nigeria, you want the truly delicious taste? Come and get it! Be supreme, Nigeria.
You fall victim because you care about saving a little money.
When I'm not blind, I'm not stupid. I'm here to cross over and take Sole, ferry ship.
You fall victim because you care about your car.
What is it? Smoke, smoke on your car. Smoke.
They cash in on your fear.
A dangerous road they so then they rob people, they keep you for years.
And they point. This week, your rib-cracking comedy, Professor John Bull, dwells on roadside wars of the people in this episode titled Point and Kill. We are not talking about fish. Beware.
This is impetuous. This is prodigious. This is wondrous.
And laugh like never before.
How dare you enter my house without at least knocking?
Why are you trying to become my dear sweet professor?
I am sweet Abednego.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network. Glow. Unlimited.
All right, you're welcome back. If you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. We are taking on our second topic for conversation this morning, and as our viewers are aware, those who have access to social media and indeed all other kinds of media outlets, there's been controversy raging with regard to an aspect of the new education curriculum. Whether, for instance, CRK, that's the Christian religious knowledge, or Islamic religious knowledge, have been merged to become one, or whether certain persons of certain faith have been forced or compelled to study some other aspects. There have also been reactions, of course, from religious leaders with regard to this. Now, we've been joined now by two guests in our studios to throw more light on this, and they are from, of course, the Federal Ministry of Education. First, Blessing, would like to welcome you guys. You're right.
Okay, well, welcome Professor Ismaili Junaidu. He's the Executive Secretary, Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council. Professor Junaidu, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria.
We'd also like to welcome Mrs. Magdalene Anene Maido. She's the Director of Planning and Research Department of the Federal Ministry of Education. Mrs. Naido, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, Kingsley.
Let's begin the conversation with Professor Junaidu. Professor Junaidu, you are familiar with the controversy which I talked about earlier and the various issues. The question is, has there been an alteration in the school curriculum, particularly at the basic education level?
Yeah, let me start by saying it is really unfortunate that the issue has taken this dimension, because you have read in the social media, and facts have been distorted as far as the curriculum, 9-year basic education curriculum is concerned. Let me emphasize, no religion is excluded in this curriculum. CRK, IRK are intact as distinct subjects in the curriculum. Now, perhaps what has brought all this issue is when the reform of the review of the curriculum was done, some subjects were grouped, into according to how we see them related, and this grouping has been misrepresented to mean IRK, CRK has been merged. They have not been merged. They are very distinct. And after all, the curriculum is not even new. People keep on saying new curriculum. It's not new. This curriculum even started in 2014. So we have even already graduated the JS component of this curriculum. So it's not new.
So, but there is a review to it. So what is contained in this review, just to use your word? You said there is a review to the curriculum. And now, when was this done?
Yeah, the review came as a result of the presidential summit in 2010. It was realized that, there is overloading of subjects, too many subjects, about 20 subjects. So now the presidential summit came up with a decision that these subjects, the number of subjects should be reduced, because it's against even the global trend. In some countries, there are even just 4 subjects. For example, in Singapore, they have only 4. Kenya, 8. US, about 6. We have about 20. So you say, well, how do we now reduce this number, this overloading of the subject list? So we said, okay, the summit directed that overloading should be reduced. And following all the due process now, we came up with grouping subjects according to how they are related. For example, one of such is the religion and national values. Hitherto, for example, basic technology, basic science, they are separate, So they are now put as basic science and technology. But nothing has changed as far as the content is concerned. The same thing now for, we have religion and national values, where you now have composing of CRK, IRK, social studies, civic education, and later security education came.
These are grouped together?
They are grouped together.
Religious and national values.
Religious and national values.
So IRK will be studied by members or students of the same faith.
Exactly. Just IRK should strictly be for Christian pupils at that level. And this was done very clear. That's why even when we came, the teachers' guide that we developed for implementing the contents of this curriculum were separate. You can see now this is the one for
we can see that. We can focus on that.
Yeah.
So the camera can focus on
yeah.
that. If you could.
Christian,
yes.
You can see. This is the one for Christian religious knowledge. You can see it, Christian religious studies, teacher's guide. This is on how to implement the curriculum. You have for the religion and national values, Islamic studies.
So, where is the controversy coming from? Because the word out there is that, look, you know, well, no matter your faith, you know, you must study all the religions, you study everything, because the subjects have all been bunched together. Let's bring in Mrs. Magdalene and then Maido into the conversation now.
Thank you very much. I'm also surprised at this because, like Prof said, it is not a new curriculum. The review was done in 2012. It was approved by the National Council on Education in 2013, and in 2014 the implementation started. So there is nothing new, and the national policy states it's right here, the listing of the subjects. Under religion and national values, you have Christian religious studies, Islamic studies, social studies, civic education, security education. And so there are themes within that group. I think the controversy came about with the development of the books by authors. So, because the curriculum, the outlay of the curriculum has all these themes in one book. The teaching guide is in a separate, they are separated, but the authors now wrote their books with all these themes in the same book. So I think that's where the controversy started, because you now have a book where you have Christian religious studies and Islamic studies in the same book, and a Christian student would have to buy the same book and perhaps be reading what he is not studying. So I think that's where the problem started. The authors should have been guided, or perhaps they were guided and did not comply with what was supposed to be.
Who approves books for use?
Yeah.
The NERDC.
Yeah. Now, we have the mandate for, you know, any book that is to be used in the school system in particular, and, you know, general, should come through the NERDC for quality assurance. Unfortunately, and we do this, we have a process. When a publisher publishes, brings to NERDC, it goes through the rigor of our, you know, assessment. Thereafter, we send it to the Federal Ministry of Education, where the Federal Ministry of Education will send to the various states. The states are supposed to only use these books that have been assessed as complying with the curriculum contents and other, you know, things of quality control. Unfortunately, now some just sit down, write, and you see this more with the private schools. I assure you, in the public schools, you can hardly see this kind of books being used, the books we are talking about. And at any rate, even after the development of the curriculum, we had several meetings with the publishers, drew their attention to this fact. And as the director said, when we observed there was this confusion, the Honorable Minister of Education, a year ago, directed that maybe the best is we separate as booklets. That's right. Yeah, and you know, that one has a process. We have already started this process since last year, 2016. But all of a sudden, after a year, you know, we are in the process, we see this going into the media that even CRK is abolished, no more teaching of CRK, that Arabic is made compulsory, which in the policy is there is an optional subject. Now they are saying it's compared, you either take French or you take Arabic, which is not so.
So let's, again, this is, I mean, as you very well know, this is an emotive issue out there. We are happy that you have proper apprehension of the issues. If, as it were, on the basis of what you have said, we have these toxic textbooks out there, what should be the proper policy procedure for recalling, withdrawing, or otherwise getting those books out of circulation?
Well, it's within the remit of the NERDC to ensure that books are assessed, and but it's the books are all there in the schools. It's important that we use the structures in place. For instance, the National Council on Education is the highest policy-making body in education, and we meet every year. In fact, next week there's going to be a meeting in Kano. So we should leverage on the meetings with the states to inform them that there's a need to comply with the policy and to ensure that the books that are recommended in your states are assessed and approved by the NERDC, that is the body that is responsible for that.
Could there have been the shortcomings of the NERDC in not quickly attending to this? Because if there were guidelines into what could be published by the publishers, as in the authors, and also this is after a year, as you're saying now, and nothing has been done, is it out of place that the public is now taking its own laws into its own time, trying to see what should be done in the first instance?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that NERDC has not taken, steps in that direction. We have, as I said, people don't distinguish between publishing and the printing.
But there are people actually in charge of this, overseeing all these aspects.
Yeah,
Prof, sorry, listen. Just go over it again one more time. What's the difference between printing and publishing? And what is the role of the NERDC in controlling it? Because there are regulations, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. Now, printing, you find that it doesn't go. You know, when somebody writes, you just go and print without going through the process of having peer review, getting the right, complying with the contents of the curriculum and so on and so forth. That is why I say those are the ones that you find mostly being patronized by private schools. Now, we should understand that education is on concurrent lists. So the states are the ones that have the primary responsibility of monitoring. The federal government is given policy. And thank God now, even the book policy is in the pipeline of, it has already gone through, where we hope it will now be even legislation on that, where you even to the nitty-gritty, the question of even grammage, font size, and everything spelled out in that policy. Yes. That we hope will be able, to bring some sense in the whole thing. But as long as states and the other users are not coming through the NERDC's books that have been assessed,
that have been published now to use
exactly, that have been published, the problem would continue.
Okay, well, Professor Junoido, thanks. Mrs. Anana Maido, the sense one makes of this is that in public schools, you are unlikely to have these toxic texts. But at private schools and at the state level, that's where this is probably in circulation. Are private schools, running riot on their own, as it were? There's no leash?
They shouldn't be, because there are regulations, and they are under the states. The state ministries of education oversee them because they approve these schools. Although we also know that there are some schools that are not approved, that are in operation. It's the job of the state government, actually, state ministers of education, to do that. So, and the NCE also has the Association of the Private Schools Proprietors as members of the NCE. So, all these issues are discussed at that level. So, we expect that that umbrella body should also do some work with their members to let them know that there are books that are recommended, and this list should be made available to them.
So beyond this, this is one of the many steps that to be taken, at least already coming on media, at the same media, to actually reach out to the whole lot. What other plans are there? Is there going to be the suspension of this, in quotes, this new curriculum, as they've put it, though you have taken time to explain, it's actually not new. What other steps are being taken to actually address this? Like Kingsley said, it's an emotive thing for us. Religion is one big fire we don't want to catch up with anyone in the country.
Yeah. Let's reiterate the fact again that it is not new curriculum. It's been in operation since 2014, and these issues are just coming up. We wonder why. But like I said, it's important to continue the discussion. It's important for people to be critical in what they read and accept. The social media is out there, and there's a lot of information going on that is wrong. So we need to be critical in what we read and accept as facts. And so, like I said, if we we have more engagements with the states, the governors, the ministries of education, the commissioners. In fact, this morning, there's going to be another such forum with the Honorable Minister and the states.
But some of these books are already found their ways right in the hands of the students or schools.
We expect states to insist that these schools be withdrawn, these books be withdrawn. We expect states to do that.
I'm wondering, just before we take some of the tweets, Prof,
Yes,
I mean, either of you could take this question. What feedback have you received from the subnational levels with regard to this hoopla over new curriculum, which is not new as we now indicate, as we now know?
Luckily now, as you are talking of what steps will be taken, luckily curriculum is dynamic, and that is why certain number, like maximum about 5 years, you review. So we are getting all the feedback. It's not closed. If there is anything improving, when we come to do the revision, that is the time now when you start, taking into consideration all kinds of suggestions on improving the whole thing. But that is, by the now, in terms of the feedback we are getting, as you said, social media is where it's difficult to control, because before you can't even say who is the author. So it's even difficult to reach and say, look, this information you are getting written by is wrong. Sometimes even fictitious, names are claimed, and before you know, they go viral. That's right. But the only thing is to try, as we are now doing, to clarify, to give some clarification through the print and the media, like the television.
In terms of the books, because you said earlier that, okay, what happened was that some of the authors bunched all of the issues, the grouped subjects, IROK, CROK, national values, civics, and whatever, into one text. The session is coming to a close, and the new session, of course, kicks off sometime in September. And when people are going to have these books, pupils and students, what should parents and guardians and the pupils themselves expect? Will there be, publications now separate and distinct for each of these studies and courses according to the guidelines that you earlier showed? You should show the viewers the cover.
Yeah, luckily, these are just very few instances. Majority of the publishers that are really publishers complied by getting these books separate, And as I said, you can hardly find these books in public schools. That is why now, just last week, there was meeting with all the chairmen of the superbs in Asaba, where we presented and even told them the guideline. So we're expecting them now, before this session now, they go into action, trying to, in their own area, to see that these books are withdrawn. Because as we said, the responsibility is with the states. They control the private schools.
All right.
Also, I would like to also add that in September last year, the National Council on Education actually approved that the Christian religious studies and Islamic studies become core and compulsory subjects at the basic education level. So once we start implementing that, this will not be, the bunching together of these themes, these subjects are themes within one subject will no longer be, because we already have approval to separate them and to have them as core subjects that are compulsory. So Christians will do CRK and Muslims will do Islamic studies.
I'm wondering, Mrs. Maido, and I'm sure that there are a number of viewers out there who will also be concerned about this. Before all of this now became, as it were, a storm on the social media, where was the inspectorate division or department or directorate of education at the state level and also at the national level?
Since we're putting the blames now more at the feet of public schools, private schools.
They are subject to inspection.
They are subject to inspection, and inspection is going on. And I believe this is unfortunate, and it shouldn't be at all, because the ministry has done all it can to ensure that what is right is done. In fact, this decision was taken before this controversy started. This decision of NC was taken before the controversy started, so it's unfounded and really unnecessary.
Anyway,
yes.
We found more comments with our viewers. We'll quickly read through them and let's share the views from our viewers. Comrade Tomari Abdul, there is nothing bad in the new curriculum. Nigerians like to make issues out of none.
Well, we've been told that there's no new curriculum. And Sunday Michael Amakoji tweets, whether the curriculum is being restructured for better education or not, no student should be forced to study any religion.
Law Alpha C has this merging CRK, that's Christian religious knowledge, with Islamic studies will foster national unity and build the nation along the path of mutual cooperation and acceptance.
Again, just to indicate that our guests have indicated there is no merger of CRK and IRK. Hassan Labron tweets, the introduction of new curriculum, no new curriculum, by the way, should contain the two principal religious studies we have in the country. Of course, that's Mrs. Maido. Alan Maido has indicated that they could make compulsory CRK.
Yes, at the basic education level.
At the basic education level, separate and distinct.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And Professor Junaidu,
that's
is that correct?
One card, yes.
All right. So, well, I would like to thank Professor Ismail Junaidu, who is the Executive Secretary of the Educational Research and Development Council. Thank you for being on Good Morning Nigeria today. Thank you very much for having me. And appreciation also to Mrs. Magdalene Anane Maido, that's Director, Planning and Research Department, Federal Ministry of Education. Thanks for being on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria. So we move on now to our complimentary segments, and we are taking sports. Super Eagles forward, as Alex Iwobi, scored as Arsenal beat Bayern Munich International Champions Cup ICC clash. And of course, in athletics, Usain Bolt is to run in the 100 meters and 4x1 at the World Championships taking place in London. Our sports desk has details of the stars.
In the midweek,
President Trump and Russia's Putin in an undisclosed meeting amidst allegation of Russia's interference in the U.S. election. And in Africa, Kenyan government shut down to curb the cholera outbreak in the country. Let's join Oyeyemi Ajayi for details.
Well, thank you and welcome. The White House has confirmed the second undisclosed discussion between the U.S. President Donald Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin. This was towards the end of a formal dinner at the G20 meeting. This media revelation did not go down well with President Trump, who referred to it as sick. The relationship between the two leaders had remained under close watch due to the alleged Russian interference in the U.S. election. Now in Africa, the Kenyan government has shut down a 3-star hotel alongside a popular restaurant due to a cholera outbreak that has killed 4 people in the country's capital since May. The health minister says this development is to control the spread of the outbreak in the country. The country's authorities have commenced the setting up of 10 more treatment centers to cope with the outbreak after at least 79 cases confirmed in various Nairobi hospitals. The government has ordered the immediate testing of about 500,000 people in the food handling business in the next 21 days.
And that's foreign news on Good Morning Nigeria, and I say bye for now.
Now let's join the Nigerian Meteorological Agency for what the weather forecast will look like for the rest of today.
Hello, and welcome to the weather forecast for Thursday. The homogeneous presence of moisture at lower levels is expected to enhance weather formations across the country in the next 24 hours. Most especially over the northwest, where we see areas around Kano, Katsina, part of Kebbi, Yewa, Mina, Abuja axis to have some isolated thunderstorms with ample precipitations in the late hours of the morning. We also expect some early morning rainfall along the Niger Delta axis and part of the southwest coast. While in the afternoon, we're looking forward to have some convective thunderstorms over Maiduguri, Yola, part of the Mambila Plateau, and the high ground of the central states, which includes areas around Zaria, Kaduna, and Jos. The land of the southeast and that of the southwest should also have some isolated thunderstorms in the course of the day. It is of importance that the public know that rainfall around this time of the year could be prolonged and hence could give rise to flood in some vulnerable areas. Hence, precautions should be taken. That's where we'll leave you for the moment. Do join us for more updates.
To Abuja, expect the rains. That's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We appreciate your company, always. Tomorrow is another time to join us for another edition. My name is Blessing Abu. To have yourself a great day.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Thank you for being with us on the program today. I also wish you the very best of the rest of today. See you tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning.